All right, Suzi's back. So I wanted to bring you back, like I said on the phone, to talk about like winter and what the bees do in the winter. And I know we were talking about it last night, but we were going after it. But yeah, I want to start with that and see if how different it is, and get
in
into
the summer.
it.
Yeah. So in the summer, in the middle of the summer solstice, the bees are working so hard, and the population is at its largest then. And as the days start to shorten going into fall, the bees pick up on that. And the food sources kind of dwindle a little bit. The flowers and the pollen and nectar that they need for food kind of dwindle down. And the weather changes. There are fewer flight hours for the colony. And so they slow down. The queen slows down egg laying, the population gets smaller. And then in the winter, when it's cold, like right now, it's 40 degrees here.
Yeah, it's cold.
The bees are just clustered tightly to keep warm. It's a little ball of bees in the middle of the hive. And the queen is somewhere in the center. But there's not a lot of larvae to feed or anything. It's
Right.
kind of shut down. There's no brood rearing. And then in order to stay warm, it's kind of cool, Tom. The bees are in this little cluster, and the ones on the outside obviously get cold.
Right.
And the ones on the inside are obviously warm.
Yeah.
And so they constantly move. So the bees on the
kinda cycle in.
outside move in, and the bees on the inside move out. So the whole cluster stays equally warm. And so that's how they stay warm. And then the food is nearby. So they have honey and pollen sources inside, and they can eat to stay warm.
Yeah.
But if they don't fly, that's all they do. They just sit there in that cluster waiting for warmer weather. And bees are kind of like an airport. They only fly in the best weather conditions. It can't be too windy, it can't be too cold or rainy or drizzly or whatever. And so in the winter, they don't really fly that many hours, and there's not that much food out there for them. So they just kind of cluster, waiting for winter solstice and for the days to get longer. And then with a little rain, we haven't had much, but with
Not
a little
this year,
bit
yeah.
of rain, the spring bloom will come. And then the queen starts laying more eggs. The bees are out foraging. There's more food coming in. And then the colony starts to grow. And so right now in winter, not much is going on. The
No.
bees are just kind of hanging out
Right.
and eating back their honey for the most part.
So they store a bunch of honey for the winter. And how did? Because I know we were talking on the phone last night. And because it gets cold here, you said they're not doing a whole lot. But in other areas, when it is a little warmer, they are doing a little bit more, right?
In San Diego,
Yeah.
they are rocking and rolling. They never slow down.
They never slow down.
Nope. And really, they do need a break.
Right.
In San Diego, they'll get it when the rain comes. They'll have a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
But here and also in snowy areas, the bees have a real great long break in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Now, in the summer, the bees are flying so much and they're working so hard. Their lifespan's only about 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's
Their
not
little
long.
wings to get tattered, they die out working, But in the winter, they don't fly as often. And because, the winter bees are different than summer bees.
Yeah.
But in the winter, because they don't fly so very often, they have to live longer.
Oh, yeah, right.
They can't die in 6 weeks. It's not, then the colony will be dead before the winter is over. So what happens is in the fall, when the food resources begin to dwindle and there's not much pollen coming in, pollen is needed. Pollen and honey are needed to feed the larvae. So when there's not much pollen coming in, that deficit in the diet of the larva causes them to develop a little bit differently than spring bees, summer bees. They have bigger fat bodies, Tom, inside of them.
Inside
of them.
Okay.
And those fat bodies help them make royal jelly in the spring, to rear new brood. So the winter bees are actually just house bees hanging out, waiting for some larvae to feed. No larvae in the winter, so they're just kind of hanging out and waiting.
Right. So when they're born, are they? I mean, you said they're a little different, but are they like once they're born? Are they eating more to store more fat and stuff?
They do eat pollen and honey,
Yeah.
to over the winter. But these big fat bodies help them to store more protein, even though maybe they haven't eaten pollen since the fall.
Yeah.
They can still produce royal jelly and protein for the new larva in the spring.
Gotcha.
So those winter bees are really important because although they don't work, their lifespan is longer. It's like the fountain of youth for bees. So in Alaska, those winter bees can live 6 months in the hive. When in the summer they only live 6 weeks. So it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So letting the bees have that resting period is important. And so the beekeepers that constantly are feeding their bees pollen patties and sugar water and everything, they never produce winter bees. The food is all there. There's no deficit.
Right. There's no need to, right?
So in California, it's normal to feed the bees pollen patty and maybe some syrup, some sugar syrup in the fall to give them a little bit of a boost to have a lot of eggs and larvae then.
Okay.
Then those eggs and larvae, the population looks good, then no more food.
Oh, okay.
Then the bees have that deficit, so they make winter bees. They develop winter bees.
Yeah.
And that have that longevity. And then when the spring comes around, the beekeepers feed the bees again to stimulate them to make lay more eggs and have the population grow quickly in the spring.
Right.
Even when the resources are kind of just starting, But getting the bees ready for the biggest pollination event on the planet.
I know we were talking about that last night.
Just
Let's get into
coming
that.
up. So the biggest pollination on the planet is right here in the California Valley, and it is for the almond trees. And there are over 1.5 million acres of almonds in the valley here.
Yeah, that's so insane.
And every acre requires 2 hives of bees to pollinate the trees. The trees are not self-pollinating, although, they're trying to kind of develop new varieties, that would require fewer pollinators.
Right.
But right now, the rule of thumb is 2 hives per acre. So there are a lot of bees that are about to be in the valley for that event, and it's huge.
Yeah. And you were telling me last night that bees come from all over the United States to come here to take part in the almond.
But the bees, okay, so under contract with the orchard owners and the beekeepers, there are details about how big the colony has to be. Usually 8 out of 10 frames in a deep hive are what's required. Because obviously, if you just bring a little teeny weeny colony, it's not going to pollinate the trees that it needs to.
Right.
So there are those requirements. So how do you wake the bees up in South Dakota or Utah to come here to California and be big and ready to rock and roll with lots of eggs and larvae and lots of developing bees? And the trick is you feed them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Feed them.
Right. You start feeding them, and most of these are kind of somewhere in the Midwest, somewhere cold, where they should be just kind of hanging out.
Yeah. And just in a cluster, not working, not doing anything. So, but it's a combination of weather and food that causes the queen to lay more. And day length. That causes the queen to lay more eggs and the population to grow like crazy in the spring. So that's exciting for beekeepers when they really ramp up.
So that's kind of what stage they're in now.
Right. Everyone's feeding.
Yeah. Everyone's feeding them.
Feeding.
And I think last night we were talking about they kind of warm them up a little bit too. Like if they're in a storage facility, they'll bring the temperature up slowly.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that they, the cluster that's really tight when it's cold. Can kind of loosen up and the bees can kind of get to work.
Right. Right. And then so when does this all start? I know you kind of touched on it, but you sent me a picture yesterday about the first almond blossom.
The commercial beekeepers have a little, wager. Who can find the first open blossom? Okay, I don't know how they do it.
I don't know.
But they're out there, you know. And so the first blossom was photographed 4 days ago.
4 days ago.
The first one. So all the blossoms are tightly closed there, and it's so darn cold too that nothing's going to open real soon.
Right.
So Thomas McCall at Sierra Honey thinks he'll be there in 2 or 3 weeks.
So he's like getting ready.
He's getting ready and he's feeding.
Yeah.
And all these contracts state when the bees have to be there. And, generally speaking, it's about 10% of the blossoms open in the orchard and the bees have to be on site.
Gotcha.
So it's something that kind of changes. That's why everyone's watching the blossoms.
Right. So do all these people have like people that keep or watch the blossoms as they kind of spread, or is it like a set time? You're like, oh, here's the first blossom. Probably 2 to 3 weeks will be there.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. You
Kind of
see
like a
the
rule of
first
thumb.
blossom and you think, okay, it's coming, but then it's also weather dependent. If it's really cold, those blossoms won't open.
Yeah, right.
But if we get a little, warm weather, then they all open at once.
Oh, right.
So it's kind
So
of
you gotta
it's
hustle.
Mother Nature, yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got to be there with your bees. If you aren't, contract's void.
Yeah, right. So when they get there to the almond orchards, do the bees kind of take time to kind of adjust to get there, or they're like, oh, I know what to do?
Nope, they know what to do.
They know what to do.
Yep, they move them in the dark. So the bees are inside the hives.
Yeah.
And they set them out in specific locations in an orchard,
Mm-hmm.
and then the bees wake up in the morning when the sun comes up, and they just fly out, orient to the new location, and get immediately to work.
That's so crazy. They
So-
already know what to do.
Yeah.
So you just said that, is there a specific, place that they have to be near the trees, or, where they want them, or?
I think it's more up to the orchard owner
Orchard
to kind
owner.
of specify, where they want
Yeah.
them.
Okay. Sweet.
But they can't just be all in one clump. They
Right.
spread them out.
Right. And so you said this is like the biggest pollination event
On the planet.
on the planet, which is so crazy.
You can see it from Google Maps. You can see the bloom progress on Google Maps. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was telling you yesterday that when we have those super blooms out in the Carrizo, I mean that's different. It's obviously not growing food, but like all the flowers out there, and you can
so
see it.
cool.
Yeah, and do you know what makes that? Like why that happens every once in a while? Like every once, I don't know how long it is, but it's a while, like 10, 15 years, right?
Yeah.
They're always like it's once in
Yeah,
X
a
amount of years.
lifetime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, right.
It's true. It's all weather.
It's all
rain.
So
I
how
think
much
it's
rain we get?
I really do.
Yeah.
So we've had 2 really good years of rain.
Yeah.
And all the beekeepers in our county are so happy because a lot of honey production. I mean, record-breaking honey production.
Yeah.
And but this year we haven't had much rain, so everyone's kind of looking in the sky. No clouds up there at all.
Right.
Nothing in the forecast either.
Yeah, no, it hasn't been too much rain. And I'm like, is it supposed to rain? Because, you kind of get used to it, The last
Yeah.
2 years, you're like, oh, like I got to get my house ready. I got to clean the gutters out. And this year it hasn't been too much.
Not at all.
Yeah. We had that one day that was like downpouring. And I was like, oh, no, nothing's covered.
Yeah, I was the same way.
I'm like-
Patio furniture.
Yeah, I got to cover my barbecue outside and, all that stuff.
Well, the bees don't work in the winter, and the
Yeah.
beekeepers don't either.
Right.
So I'm outside doing yard work and getting ready for my spring garden and stuff like that.
Right. So other than what you said already, is there any other differences between the winter bees? I mean, other than they're just kind of hanging out and like you said they kind of produce honey that's different too, right?
So when the queen lays an egg,
Yeah.
it's a little tiny rice-looking thing.
Right.
And she sets it in the bottom of the cell. And then after 3 days, it turns into a larva. It flattens out, lays down, and it just turns into a larva. And then it needs food. And the food that it is fed is royal jelly.
Yeah.
And that comes from nurse bees. Okay, they produce it.
Okay.
And so they get the royal jelly for the first few days of life, and honey, and bee bread. And the bee bread is pollen fermented with honey. Okay, so they get royal jelly and they get bee bread. And the queen gets royal jelly the whole time she's developing as a larva. That's what turns her into a queen. But the workers just get royal jelly in the beginning.
Okay.
And then they get bee bread, the pollen mixed with honey.
Yeah.
And then they turn into a pupa. The cap goes on the cell, and they metamorphosize into adult bees with wings and everything, kind of like a butterfly, And so the royal jelly is really important. It's the food source of the babies.
Yeah.
And it's produced by these winter bees in great, crazy amounts. They produce more royal jelly than actually the summer bees do because they've got all these fat bodies that will hold on to it. And so they are nurse bees waiting to feed larvae. They're not working really hard, so their lifespan is longer, and they have better immunity as well.
Huh.
So winter bees are really important.
Why do you think they have better immunity? Just because of they're a little more robust?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it has to do also, with the physiology inside. So if you take a summer bee, and this is kind of gross, but you cut it open,
Yeah.
and you take a winter bee and you cut it open, they look totally different. Now, they look the same on the outside, but on the inside, the winter bee has all these white, like cottony, fluffy things in their abdomen, and they're fat. They're fat bodies.
Yeah.
So winter bees are just important because they live longer and they're able to rear lots of larvae in the spring. And then when the food starts coming in the spring or the beekeepers are feeding, then the winter bees, do their work and they die and are replaced with spring bees, summer bees that don't have those fat bodies. So having bees go through a dormant period where there is not food coming in forces the bees to make winter bees, to develop into winter bees with these bigger fat bodies.
Right.
But feeding all year round or living in a warm place like Florida or San Diego, those winter bees never develop. The colony just stays alive and working and rearing brood all through the season. And that can be a little hard on them.
Yeah. Right. Huh.
They need that rest.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we all do. I mean,
All people do.
all people do.
And winter is a good time for that for people too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's cold. You stay inside. You kind of rest, get ready for the spring.
Yeah, definitely. What was I going to say? So how does the honey change as well? Do they develop any honey during the winter, or they're just kind of trying to survive?
No, they do in Paso Robles and San Luis Obispo County. They do forage. We haven't really had rainy or yucky weather.
Right.
It's just been cold. But during the days, yesterday it was 70 in the afternoon.
Yeah, I know. It's like 30 in the morning and then like 80s in the
So the bees were busy as heck yesterday afternoon. They were flying all over the place. So yeah, they are working. There's a eucalyptus red gum bloom right now in South County. It is going bonkers. The bees are bringing in so much nectar. Those flowers produce a lot. And so the bees are bringing in so much nectar, and they're really working hard, already in South County, and it's early in the season.
This brings us to this week's sponsor. Are you dealing with unwanted honeybees in your home or property in San Luis Obispo County? Don't worry, Suzi and the Queen team are here to help. Based in Paso Robles, California, Suzi Hulsmann and her dedicated team specialize in the safe removal, relocation, and preservation of honeybee colonies. Using advanced infrared technology, they accurately locate bee colonies in places like oak trees, wine barrels, barn walls, and more. Their gentle removal process ensures the bees are safely transferred to a more suitable location, maintaining the health and productivity of each colony. If you need professional honeybee removal or swarm rescue services, contact Suzi and the Queen team today at 805-635-5223 or email them at thequeenteam@aol.com. For more information, visit their website at suziandthequeenteam.com. Oh, crazy.
So-
The eucalyptus, huh?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that stuff down there with where the butterflies are.
Right.
Where's that, Grover, Oceano
Yeah.
area? There wasn't too many butterflies this year, though, I think.
No, that's true.
Yeah, there wasn't too many. So the color of the honey changes?
Yes.
Yes.
So in the spring, it's really white, like 7-Up. It's really light.
Yeah.
And the last time I was with you, I brought you a jar of that really light
it was
honey.
really good.
But in the summer, the floral sources change, and the honey is a little bit darker. Kind of like a ginger ale or something like that. It's a light amber color. But in the late summer and the fall, the honey is really dark. and it's beautiful, and it has more minerals and antioxidants, and it's better for you than, the spring honey. And so that's why a lot of people take it during cold and flu season, kind of boost your immune system a little bit. I love the dark honey, but our kids are spoiled. They only like the light honey.
I know. I think I remember you saying you like the light stuff.
I like the dark honey. It's good. It's more flavorful, and it's very fragrant as well.
So, the color, is it based off of what they're foraging?
Yes.
Or is it like sitting? It's probably not marinating, but like that's kind of the word that I think. Like, is it marinating in there longer? No. Okay.
It's the color it came in.
Got it. Okay.
The bees cap it, and it's the color when it came in.
Right. Okay.
But honey does crystallize and especially in the winter when your kitchen is cold, it does crystallize around the little pollen particles, and then it's hard, and you can't even get your spoon in it.
Right.
And that's just a feature of good honey with lots of pollen in it.
Yeah, so it's just based off of what they're going after.
And some nectar sources crystallize faster in honey than others. So I don't know. The fall honey does tend to crystallize, I think, a little more than the spring honey does, or faster. But
based off the content or whatever's in it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I like both of them. But yeah, I'm more. We get the dark honey, and we're like, I don't know, should we get the dark honey, the light honey? There's so many. I mean, we go to the olive oil place up there, and they have Thomas's honey, and I'm like, there's so many different honeys.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know which one. I mean, I went with what you said. Didn't you say the buckwheat was like one of your guys' favorites?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I think that's a good option.
Yeah. Thomas McCall, he labels all of his jars, so you know where it came from and what the floral source is.
Exactly.
And that takes a smart person, to understand what the bees are bringing in.
So is he tasting them, or is he just
I think it's more the location where the bees are. He understands the nectar sources there.
So he's just like, this is what this is, and this is what that is.
The wildflower from San Luis in the spring.
Yeah. I'm like, there's like 8 or 10 different kinds. I'm like, I don't know which. I mean, they all taste good. But
the colors are so pretty. I'm the same way. I'm like, which one?
Yeah, it's like a whole like line of them, and you're like, I don't know which one, but they're all good. I mean, they're all delicious.
We at my home yard in Paso Robles this year, I had equipment empty hives, sitting in the driveway.
Yeah.
And bees from the neighborhood flew into them and produced honey. So I just kind of let them do their thing. And this late October, we finally moved the hives out of the driveway and got them out into the apiary and pulled the honey. And it was the most gorgeous dark, fall honey. And so we've been enjoying that.
Oh, nice.
Yum.
Yeah, it's so good. What we're going to talk about too. Did you want to talk about the wax process at all?
In the course of the year, I end up with a lot of scrap beeswax. Right. Because we take it out of structures and we cut it into rectangles that rubber band into frames, but then I have all these curly pieces or ugly pieces, and I let the bees kind of clean it up. We put it in the front yard under our walnut tree, and the bees kind of clean up any stickiness that might be there. But at the end of the season, I get all that before the rain. I get all the beeswax out from under the walnut tree, and I melt it down and clarify it and make candles. And so that's a lot of fun for me because I hate to let it go to waste. And I love beeswax candles. They're so much better than anything else.
Yeah, you said it burns like ridiculous.
So long.
Yeah.
And they never drip. As long as you've got the right wick size and everything, they never drip. And they smell so good.
Oh, yeah? Do they smell like the stuff that they've been...
Yeah.
Wow.
It smells so nice.
How did you learn how to do that?
I learned through our club.
Oh, okay.
So the Central Coast Beekeepers Alliance is our great club here in San Luis Obispo County. And in November, they have a little craft meeting. And it's how to make gifts and products from the hive.
Oh, okay.
So we do beeswax ornaments and lip balm and, stuff, honey sticks, straws.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff like that. And that's where I learned how to hand dip candles.
Oh, cool.
Mike Lindsay taught us all. And so they melt big things of wax and you get your wick and you just dip, like in the old colonial times. And so I went home. I had so much fun with that. I went home and I just,
You're
studied.
Like, I have so much.
Yeah. And there's so much on the internet. Oh my gosh, you could be lost there forever.
I know,
trying
that's
to
the
figure it all
problem.
out.
It's like it just sucks your time up and you're like, I got other things I got to do, but This is
But
so
in the
fascinating.
winter, I have all this time,
Yeah,
Tom.
maybe, yeah. What were we talking about yesterday, though? You were talking about like when you go to remove bees, sometimes people call you for bumblebees or other types of bees. Why don't you talk about that and why? I mean, I think you said you tried or tried a couple times and it just doesn't work for them.
So I get a lot of wacky doodle people on the phone, Tom. People, and usually my callers all have their hair on fire.
Yeah, right.
You know, because something is going wrong.
Talk them off the ledge.
And
Yep.
so, And so I asked for photos because I want to confirm we're talking about honeybees. Sometimes they're talking about yellow jackets or, like you said, bumblebees or solitary bees. California has a lot of native solitary bees that just live their lives alone, not in a colony. And so you got to figure that out with the caller, you know?
Yeah, right.
But bumblebees can be really intimidating because they buzz really loud and they're big and they can be kind of defensive. I mean, if you get too close, you know, to their nest. And so often people want us to remove bumblebees. And I have tried unsuccessfully. And the problem is that the foraging force doesn't reorient to a new location. They just don't. And we've tried everything. Now, some other beekeepers may have a better success, but we've tried everything. Taking a compass reading on my cell phone to orient the entrance perfectly from the removal location to the, apiary, and measuring the height of the entrance and all this other stuff. And the proper hive, they need a different style hive than honeybees do. And none of it's really worked. It really hasn't. But the good thing about bumblebees is they only stay in their nest, in their home, for 1 year. So the queen starts out overwintering in leaf litter. Okay, she overwinters alone. And then in the spring, she starts flying around, gathering pollen and nectar, and she chooses a home. And then she starts rearing her own babies. And then after a while, they become workers and they help her increase, the size of the colony. And then in the late summer, she lays daughter queens. The colony rears those queens. The primary queen just dies of old age. And then the daughters fly away to overwinter somewhere in the landscape and then just start all over in the spring. So the bumbles are usually only a problem early spring through, say, late summer. And then that's it. They're gone for the season. So, but they were so much fun to look at.
I know. I mean, we see them here all the time in the front and even in the back. And we're like, oh, look there's a little bumblebee. Because, you usually see bees. So, like, I always think it's pretty rare, I mean, maybe it's not rare, but for us to see them here. Do they have a different function as far as, like, honeybees versus bumblebees?
Yeah, they pollinate different flowers.
Different flowers.
So, in tubular flowers, the bumblebee is too big. It can't fit to get inside to eat the nectar.
Yeah.
So they're really resourceful. They chew a little hole at the end of the flower, and then they drink through the hole in
Like
the
a
flower.
little- like a little straw.
It's like a little straw. And the honeybees know that. And so they go to those tubular flowers, and they drink out of the bumblebee hole. It's like a watering hole.
So they're like, oh, the bumblebee's done all the work for me.
Yeah. But bumblebees obviously are so much bigger than honeybees.
right.
So honeybees can fit inside those tiny flowers and the bumbles can't.
Right.
So,
but are they like when they see something like that, they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to go inside then. Like, there's already a hole.
There's a little pit stop on the side.
Oh, yeah. And they're like, meh.
Yeah. It's fun.
Oh, okay. And anything else as far as like just the different flowers that they use and that they pollinate, you said, because they're a little bigger.
Yeah.
They can't get their bodies in.
And there's been a lot of research in the last few years about how bumblebees get pollen. They buzz the flower at a certain frequency, and the pollen comes off of the flower and just sticks to them. and they're just covered in pollen.
Huh.
So UC Davis has done, the entomology department at UC Davis has done a lot of research on this, and they have a great website where you can identify the native California bumblebees because they look a little bit different, and they have a lot of information on that buzz pollination that they do. It's pretty cool.
Huh. And then did they stop? Do you know if they stopped buzzing and then like, is it the buzzing that causes the pollen to do that, or just the buzzing in general?
I think it's the
vibrations,
the frequency of the vibrations, and of course the pollen has to be ripe and ready to leave the flower,
right?
You know, but the bumbles know that.
It's so crazy. So they
end up covered in pollen when you see them.
I know. They're definitely
just covered.
But it's because of the buzzing at a certain frequency. You said,
yeah,
and they figured out whatever frequency that was.
Mother Nature built it that way.
That's so crazy.
It's crazy, but honeybees don't do that. They actually pick the pollen particles off of the flowers, and then they stick them into these little like little bowls on their hind legs, and they have little hairs, and the pollen sticks there. So honeybees have 6 legs, and when you see them flying, you can see those yellow or orange or red particles on their rear legs, and those are the pollen foragers, and that's what they're doing. That's how they carry the pollen back.
So it's a little more labor intensive for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to work at it.
They got to work at it, and they're not buzzing at all for
for that purpose.
Not for that purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. And I wanted you to explain, because you kind of touched on it. Like you said, when you tried to remove the bumblebees, you were like, you were using your compass. And so do you do that with the regular honeybees as well?
No, they relocate so easily.
Okay, so then
so easily.
So someone thought that, or there was research saying that, you know, the compass and using the compass in the same degrees or same, you know, heading when you relocate them would help them kind of adjust.
And also height.
Height?
Okay. Height too. So yeah, and they just don't, the foraging force just doesn't reorient. They travel to the new location in the hive just fine, but when the sun comes up the next morning, they fly away and they don't return.
Oh, where you put them.
Yeah, and then the box is empty, and you're like, where do they go? So for the most part in my business right now, I work hard to convince the property owner with the bumblebee colony to let them stay until they're done doing their work and they fly away. Then you can close up their entrance hole and there won't be any problem. They don't store honey like honeybees do.
Right.
So it's not a big deal.
So do they get in structures just like honeybees do?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
They like insulation. They build bumblebees build a little nest that looks like a bird nest. And it's got fluffy stuff in the bottom. So they love insulation. Honeybees don't like insulation, but housing insulation. So sometimes bumbles are found in walls or floors of homes where there's insulation. And they build this little nest.
And then
Looks like a bird nest.
Yeah, because what was I going to say? So do you get a lot of calls for that at all? For bumblebees in general in a home or a structure?
Yeah, I probably get 6 a year maybe. That's not a lot.
No, that's
not
too bad.
compared to how many honeybees I move.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And last year I had this lady who wanted me to remove a yellow jacket nest and relocate it. And those things are mean as heck.
Yeah, they're nasty.
And I said, I'm not doing that. I am not digging it up out of the ground to relocate it. It's not going to happen. Yeah, it was in a gopher hole.
Oh, yeah.
She wanted me to dig it up and relocate it.
No. Nope.
Didn't happen.
So what do people do with those as far, because I know people ask all the time, like, what do people do with white jackets or, you know, wasps like that?
The yellow jackets are so mean. And they usually are in the ground. Okay, and they don't dig in a hole or anything, but they occupy another hole, usually from a gopher or something like that. And so they are really sensitive to vibrations. So are bumblebees. And so if you just walk near them, they sense that vibration and they'll come after you. And they are mean as heck.
Yeah.
And so, but they do have their place in the environment.
Right.
They are really good about getting insect pests out of your garden, like caterpillars and stuff like that, because they're carnivorous, and so they feed that to their babies. And so they're good in the garden, they're good in the environment, but not close to people.
Yeah, right.
Not close to people. They can be really dangerous.
Yeah, like we'll be cooking out there, and I've never seen one. And then I just finished the backyard last year, and we're cooking, and ribs and stuff, and then they just descended, and I
Yeah.
was like, I have never seen any of these. Like, this is crazy. And they're like, oh, it's meat. Let's go.
Yeah, they are crazy. In the fall, it's the worst.
Is it? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of the fall. It's
Yeah.
like October.
And they'll invade honeybee hives too. The yellow jackets will. If they're hungry enough, they want to eat the larva inside there.
Oh, okay.
And Tom, they're so mean. The yellow jackets will overtake the entrance of a honeybee hive. They'll kill all the guard bees that are guarding the entrance. Once those guard bees are out of the way, the yellow jackets make their way into the hive. And Tom, get this, they kill the queen first.
They kill the queen first.
And when the queen, and they eat her, Tom. They fly
gosh,
her
what a
away and
little
eat
savage.
her. And then the colony is just in chaos because there's no queen. And they know that.
Right.
And so then, and there's no defense. All the guard bees have been eaten.
Yeah.
So the yellow jackets will just march right in. They carry off the larva. They take the adult bees too. And just in a matter of a couple of days, they can kill the whole colony, Tom.
The
yellow jackets.
That's not
so
good.
not good around beehives at all. And new beekeepers always asking, my bees were there 3 days ago and they're gone.
Oh no. They think it's the
They
yellow
get
jackets.
eaten up. Yeah,
Oh, man.
fast too. Yeah, they're mean.
So, I've seen videos of this, like where the colony will kind of surround. I don't know if it's yellow jackets, but they'll surround like an intruder, and they'll
yeah.
try to like heat it like enough to basically kill it, right?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. Do they do that with the yellow jackets, or is
Yes.
it just any intruder they'll try to do that
Any
with?
intruder they'll do it with. And it's called balling. I don't know
That's what
about
it's
the
called?
term.
I
It's
didn't
called
make it up.
balling. And the heat of the bees, cooks the little invader.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, the invader. And they'll do it to another queen as well. So get this, Tom. If it's mating season and there are queens that are going out on mating flights in the apiary, and accidentally the queen flies into the wrong colony, they'll ball her. They'll kill her right away because wrong colony, wrong queen. Okay. And sometimes those new queens get a little confused. They forget where they were at, you know, or whatever. So they'll kill.
They'll kill them,
kill
huh?
anything. Yeah. Anything that comes in the door. So,
And that's
but
not-
the yellow jackets, they come in such like an army in the
Yeah.
fall that the bees can't, and they pick the smallest, weakest colony to attack, of course. So in the fall, you just can't control them. They get after them.
What was I going to say? So is that the whole colony that does that, or is it certain, like you said, the guard bees, or the whole colony knows how to do that?
The yellow jacket colony?
No. Like when they heat them up.
Oh,
the intruder.
Yeah. It's the guard bees at the front that do
Okay.
it. But others will join in. The foragers will join in on that because it's a guard bee's job to guard the entrance.
Right.
So they're the ones who do that.
Who do that? But
Yeah.
then what if they get into like deeper in the hive?
If they kill all the guard bees and there's no defense,
Yeah.
that's what they do first.
Right.
They kill the guard bees at the entrance and then they have free run to go in.
It's so crazy that they know how to do all this stuff.
And when you see it happening, you can't stop it.
There's nothing you
It's
do.
hard to stop it once it gets started, that invasion of the yellow jacket. So most beekeepers, they get rid of the yellow jacket colonies that are near the apiary just to avoid that.
Right.
And you can put what's called a robber screen on the entrance, it's like a little trick entrance for the bees to get in, but the yellow jackets can't quite figure it out. So there are ways, to deter them. But in the fall, they are horrible. Just when beekeepers are trying to, get their bees settled for the winter, make sure they have enough food and sources, to get through the winter. And then those yellow jackets come and mess everything up.
But I think it's just so crazy that they all know, like, okay, we need to go out. We need to go after the guard bees, number one. And number two, we're going straight for the queen. Like, everything else is like, who cares? And then the larvae, right?
Yeah.
It's so wild that like nature knows how to do all that stuff just
The
inherently.
insect world, the insect world is brutal.
It's totally
Oh my
brutal.
gosh.
It's so crazy. What else was I going to tell you or ask you? I wanted to ask you about the that job you had. You had that huge job in San Luis with the 6 different hives that you completed
in the cabana.
in the
pool
cabana.
cabana.
You sent me one of the what do you call it? The trays filled with bees. And I was like, that sound is so insane.
And that cabana was so little on the inside. Oh my gosh. We had so much fun there, Tom.
That's so crazy.
That has got to be the best job ever. We had a great time. And we would take off our jackets and sit by the pool and have lunch and stuff. The view
up in the San
was
Luis
beautiful.
Hills,
Oh my God, it was fabulous. And the bees were awesome. Oh my gosh, they had so much honey. We got all 6 queens, Tom. That's pretty cool. And so they went to Thomas McCall, and so he's watching them because they were incredible. And I kind of assumed they were all related somehow.
Oh, right.
To each other.
I mean, you said last time we talked, you said that they were like 6 different hives were separated by like a 2x4
they were.
or something crazy like that.
Yeah, they were right next to each other.
I'm like, wow. So how did you? I mean, I know how you like do it because you talked about last time, but how do you differentiate between the hives, other than the queen, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So at the cabana, we pretty much did just 1 colony a day. We just worked there in the morning, had lunch, and went home. Towards the end, we did 2 colonies. Okay, but initially we just, it's easier to just do 1, especially when they're giant like that. It takes a while,
Yeah.
So I use an infrared camera, and it can see right through the building materials and show me the heat signature of the bees. And it can also show me the studs and the framing. So I could see the 2x4 in between the 2 hot spots. So I knew they were separate.
Okay.
And you don't want them to mingle. Opening both colonies right next to each other like that in that little teeny cabana, they would fight.
Oh, and you don't want that.
We don't want to deal with that.
You don't want that at all.
None of that. So we opened them 1 at a time. But they were so big, Tom. They started up at the top of the ceiling and they went all the way down almost to the floor. It was insane.
A wall of bees.
It was. It was so much fun.
Oh my gosh, that's so insane. I still think about it. I'm like, that's so insane.
And when I go to work and we have all this honey, I don't sell that honey. It's not really ethical. I don't know that there's any law against it in California, but it's not really ethical. I mean, do you want to eat pool cabana honey? I'm not really sure.
I mean, when you say it like that,
maybe know it was pool cabana honey. But what I do at work is we give the honey away.
Yeah.
We just give it to the property owner. And so in that case, it was the property manager that we were giving the honey away to. And we were giving it to him in bins. He went crazy with it. All the neighbors had honey, and it was beautiful. It was very clean. That's one thing about honeybees, Tom. They're really clean. There's no dust. There's no straw. There's no dirt. They clean 24/7. It's very clean inside. No dead bees, none of that stuff. So the honey was beautiful. I mean, it looked commercially produced, but it was from the cabana.
Yeah, you're like, maybe not mention that part.
We all ate it.
Yeah, right.
The guys
sure
and I,
fine.
we all eat it. I mean, it's good.
There's plenty of flowers everywhere. And
it was beautiful, but I think we didn't weigh the honey, but there must have been a couple, 200-300 pounds of honey in that cabana, Tom.
Yeah, that's what you said. Like, how many bees you got out of it? I was like, that's so insane.
It was crazy.
And I'm like, I believe it. From what you sent me, I was like, that's insane. Like, and the sound of all those bees buzzing, all like clustered together. I'm like, oh my God, is this Candyman or something? I don't know. It's like crazy.
And when the colonies are that big, it's hard to find the queen.
Yeah.
My eyeballs are bugging out of my head, until I can find her.
Right.
Because that is the goal. Because if she's injured or hurt or something happens, then we need to know that right away.
Yeah, right. What else were we going to talk about here? What else did you want to talk about as far as like winter bees and pollination and all that good stuff?
It's interesting the way that agriculture has developed in the valley to need the bees to do this on such a scale. It's mind-boggling. I just can't believe it. But migratory beekeepers just kind of take it in stride. They'll head to the apples in Washington afterwards. They have their routes.
Right.
I mean, and the nation's food sources depend on them.
Right.
You know, we wouldn't be eating almonds drinking almond milk,
Yeah,
you know,
no almond
if
milk.
it was like this, if
Yeah,
it
right.
wasn't like this. And I think the general public maybe has a bad attitude or towards commercial beekeepers. Like maybe they have a weird stereotype, like, you know, they're mean to the bees and they steal all their honey or what, you know, these crazy things people think. But commercial beekeepers are such hardworking individuals.
Yeah, no.
And it takes a lot of money and time and effort to get the bees there, not just transporting them, but, you know, forklifts to unload them and help. You
Yeah,
know,
right.
people to go with you. And then the majority of the commercial beekeepers remain in the valley during pollination and they just kind of hang out, you know, waiting for the pollination event to end so the bees can go on to their next location. But these guys are really hard working.
Yeah.
And they do make a lot of money. Now, hard work pays off.
Right.
But the pollination event is kind of like the wild, wild west, Tom. They're the little guys that are just coming in.
Right.
They're the big guys that have been there for generations and own their own equipment, you know. But there is room to make money for the little guy there. There really is. If you've got quality bees, you can usually inch your way in. And I find that very exciting. In other industries, maybe it's not so easy to move up real quick.
Yeah, maybe not.
Or to, you know, go from 100 hives to 500 in a year. You know, I mean, that's possible.
Right.
And so when pollination is over in the valley, the hives are full of honey. And they're a lot heavier than when they came.
Oh, right. Right. Yeah, right.
And they may have had they definitely will have added extra boxes. Okay, so now you've got all these heavy hives. And so after pollination, the commercial beekeepers try to offload some of them. They sell them.
Yeah.
Rather than transport them back to their home yard, or maybe they don't need them all for the next pollination event. And so a lot of bees change hands, you know. And if you play your cards right, you can buy cheap bees after the pollination event and then grow to be an enormous beekeeper, you know, if that's what you want.
Right.
And I think that's really exciting. I mean, what the heck? The small guy can really do
Come up.
well.
Yeah, right.
Come up fast.
Right.
And there's a lot of money to be made there. And there's a lot of thievery.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
the Wild West, Tom.
yeah, I mean,
the
it's-
thievery happens.
It's crazy.
And so these contracts that we've been discussing between the orchard owners and the commercial beekeepers were written and agreed to last year at this, you know, a year ago. So that if you are under contract to bring 600 hives or say 200 hives and you don't meet the numbers, then that reduces the money in your contract. It may even make your contract void if you can't bring the number of bees agreed upon.
Right.
And so there's all this thievery
That's so crazy.
in the night with forklifts
Right.
and, you know, bee suits and, you know, just craziness. And the hives are usually just painted with identification on the side. So the thieves just paint over that, you know, and move them on. And there's no bee police, really. There's no bee police out there
No.
looking for stolen hives. They try. But, you know, it's a lot of craziness going on over there. So the thievery has already started. And technology is kind of catching up with it a little bit because now you can put, you know, the air tags inside the hives or under the pallets and,
Right.
you know, to track them. And so at least technology is improving a little bit. And maybe that will sort of deter the thieves. But you know how it is, Tom. Those thieves, they're all out there
Yeah.
trying to make their money. Or
Totally. I'm gonna go grab your candles real quick because I want to show. I
Okay.
want to show them.
When it's cold, you can't smell them real well, but you should smell. Try.
Oh yeah, no, they smell wonderful.
So, Tom, when you open a hive,
Yeah.
the bees are warm inside, and you take the lid off, this beautiful smell comes out. And it's a smell of beeswax and honey. And it smells so good. So when I'm making candles at home, oh, the whole place smells wonderful.
It smells like
Smells good.
Christmas or something. Like
Yeah.
it almost that's almost what it smells like. So have you made like an advent calendar or advent candles out of the 4?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And my mom and my sister are really spoiled. They want those hand dipped beeswax candles on the tables during the holidays, and I get it. It's a labor of love. One dip makes a millimeter of wax around the candle. So Tom, those candles, that's a lot of dipping. It's a labor of love. It really
Wow.
is. You could pour the wax into molds and, make, pillar candles or
Right.
whatever. And of course I've done a lot of that, but the hand dipped is really special. It really is.
So, what was I gonna say? As far as like what's happening here and the pollination event, everyone ships their stuff, right? And everything's like labeled, and it all has to be a certain. What'd you say? Like eight?
Each contract might be different.
Right.
But usually it's 8 frames of brood, that's larva and pupa
Yeah.
in a 10-frame hive. So there's not a lot of room for growth there.
No.
The hive's already full.
Right.
So then you've got to put a super on top of that so the bees can expand upward, as they grow, as the population gets bigger. But if there's no rain and no break in this next month, those colonies are going to explode in the valley, and
Right.
then they're going to fill those boxes and, swarm. Nobody needs that. Have the bees take off.
Yeah. Right.
Then you don't get paid for the empty boxes,
No.
So the idea is to manage the growth so that they don't swarm and fly away and get too full, and just to keep adding boxes. And so that's why all the commercials are spending their time or have employees in the valley managing the bees. So, and they will put on honey, so they're going to be heavy.
Yeah, and you were saying yesterday that they'll try and sell some of the bees at the end of the season because
So
it's
they
a
don't
lot.
want to transport them back?
Yeah. So if they do sell them, how do they just kind of get more colonies when they go back home or something, or
Or you'd make new queens
Make
in the
new queens?
spring.
Oh, okay.
When they get back. So the problem with almond pollination is that if it rains a lot, the orchard owners spray fungicides. Okay, now the California almond growers, have helped coordinate these events, this pesticides sprays, and made all these recommendations. So technically, if the orchard owner wants to spray their orchard because it's rained and then the flowers are upward facing on the almond, they get filled with rain, and then it causes problems with the pollination. So they spray fungicides, okay? And if they spray at night, then technically the bees are all in their hives. That won't bother them. And then by the time the bees are flying in the morning, the whatever they've sprayed on the trees has dried and shouldn't be an issue. But really it is, Tom. The bees are flying around with pesticides. Well, not pesticides, but fungicides. And they are, in touch with these chemicals, cocktails, whatever is chosen to spray.
Right.
Now, this year, without a lot of rain, maybe they won't be spraying as much, as in a year like last year when it rained so much, in the valley.
Right.
So, but regardless, all of the bees in the valley will be in touch with some sort of a fungicide, and that can cause problems down the road. And so some beekeepers, a lot of beekeepers report that the brood, the larva, crashes 2 weeks after the bees are out of the orchards. And so there are problems associated with that pollination event where those trees are so critical, It's a little dance between the orchard growers and the commercial beekeepers, and with the fungicides in between.
Right.
So, and of course the orchard owners don't want to hurt the bees. They're going along with the guidelines and spraying at night and all that, but I
Right.
don't think there's great communication between those two groups.
Yeah, but there's still bees dying off, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
still have that. I don't know what the issue is with that, but so they spray typically when it rains a lot.
Right, and it's fungicides
to prevent fungi growing into the trees,
in the flowers.
in the flowers.
And all the rain causes that to be more a problem.
Right.
So when it's dry, it's not such an issue. They won't. But it's up to the orchard owner to decide upon their spray program and execute it. They're not going to call the beekeeper and ask permission. They're just going to do what they do, and to make sure that they get the best crops.
But the beekeeper inherently knows that
this is happening.
This is going to happen. So try and get the bees back in their boxes at night or whatever, or however they do it.
They just know that they're going to be in contact with chemicals.
Right.
They just know. It's just something. It's a hazardous job those bees have, Tom.
Well, they do an important job too. I mean, and what were we talking about? The cabana too. When you bring all those to an apiary, to like someone like Thomas Hill, is he ready for them? Are you like, hey, I got a bunch of bees for you, and he's excited? Or he's like, is there ever a time where he's like, I have enough to take care of them? No, never. No.
When I first started this business, though, I did fill apiaries where the beekeeper said, Sue, I'm done. Okay. I'm full. So, But Thomas McCall is a little different. He's big, and he can take anything I bring.
Oh, nice.
So we were on the phone this morning, and I told him, we were talking about when he's going to the valley.
Yeah.
And he said, well, when are you going back to work? And I said, my phone's not ringing. I'm just
my
sitting
phone
here. Yeah. So I don't think I'll, realistically be back at work for at least, 6 weeks or something like that. And I'm just sitting here waiting for the phone to ring.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's been you said it's kind of been a short season because it hasn't been rainy. Too,
right. It's been pretty mild. Yeah. So I'm expecting the bees in San Luis Obispo County to have done really well and be big this spring just because the weather's been so great.
Yeah.
They've been able to fly all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they've been busy with whatever they're doing. So when people call you, what is like, what should they have available to you, or what should they tell you that would make your job easier?
I think I have standard questions.
Yeah.
How long have they been there? When did you notice them? That kind of thing. But pictures and video.
Okay.
So I have spent, hundreds and thousands of hours looking at video.
Yeah.
And I can tell a lot just from a short video.
Right.
I can tell if the bees live there or if they're just looking at it. Because it's like real estate shopping,
Like,
I can tell the real estate shoppers versus a resident colony.
Yeah.
So the best thing really would be for photos and video, because then I can see how big it is, where it's entering. In my mind, I can think, okay, it's in the wall, or maybe it's in the ceiling. And then I follow up with a contract and an appointment for infrared evaluation. And I take the infrared camera out when it's cold, or dark, or both, and the camera will show us the heat signature of the bees in the structure. Then I go home, download the camera, and write a report and an estimate for the relocation. And then the client can see where the bees are. Usually the client's standing there with me, looking at the infrared camera with me, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah, I bet that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And then they get the honey too, I'm assuming.
And then they get the honey, and I bring little takeout containers with me. We fill them up. It's fun. And sometimes the neighbor will come and say, oh, we heard that you had honey. Give
me some of that good stuff.
We've done removals at big schools or big office buildings where everyone comes. And
Nice.
They all want to take pictures and selfies and eat
Yeah.
honey and stuff. And that's fun. That's a great time for me.
Yeah. And do you find that, at least in San Luis County, they're in a certain spot, or they're in, some old buildings that they found, or people aren't occupied, or?
It's kind of weird because we run across colonies that have just been there a month or 2 months or 6 months. And then we come across colonies that have been there 5 years or 10 years or whatever. And so some of those big ones really get me excited. I tell you, when you look at an infrared and it's huge,
It's just
it's fun.
It's just like fireworks on your infrared,
Totally
I'm
is.
sure.
And the client who thinks, oh, there are just a few bees in there, then I have the pictures to show them this is how many bees are in there.
So do you approach it differently with big hives versus smaller to low hive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I work by myself and I don't need my general contractors and my crew.
Right.
Little jobs, I can do by myself, and that's kind of fun. I to help save money, I work with other general contractors, like on new construction or reconstruction, renovation. If there's a general contractor on board there, I'll just go work with them.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But I like working with property owners, like to cut open shed floors and stuff like that, because they're not beekeepers and they're always fun to work with. But for the most part, I get my contractor on board and off we go.
Right.
And we've worked together for so long now. That's Dwayne Zaragoza, Dwayne's Home Services here in Paso Robles. He's a general contractor, and we've been working together. I think we're going on 8 years now. That's a long time.
You guys are dialed in now.
Yeah, and so we know exactly what to do. We've done so many shed floors and walls and ceilings and stuff, We got some wackadoodle places. Like I had a phone call about a couple weeks ago, bees in a wellhead. And this is a pump wellhead, on top of a well.
Okay.
And it's a commercial well in a vineyard. And the bees are flying in and out of the wellhead. And that's going to be a tough one, Tom. We're going to have to pull that wellhead. And, of course, my contractor can't do it. So
Right.
we'll work with Filipponi and Thompson, here in town, and they'll have to pull it. But that remains to be seen if we'll do that job or not. But that's a wacky place and a hard-to-get-to place.
Is it? Yeah, right. Is it because the water's there or what? Or
Beats the heck out of me. There's got to be some, void in that wellhead that they can
Get into.
have space and enough space to live. Because, bees don't live in a little tiny spot like this.
No.
It's got to be a big space. And so the wellhead looks like it's this big. And that means pulling it with a crane and all that stuff. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But for the most part, our jobs are, pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Walls, ceilings, floors, whatever, roofs, attics.
I'm just trying to, I'm thinking like, people that are calling that, don't, I mean, they can call you, but it's like, don't necessarily, it's not necessarily a job that you can take, with the rogue, solo bees or bumblebees, yellow jackets,
Yep.
So.
And a lot of people call me and don't hire me.
Yeah.
They just need some information. They just,
Fair enough.
And honestly, stinging insects are kind of scary,
Right.
so information helps,
Right.
calm everyone's fears, and as long as you understand the guard bees are the ones that want to sting you, they're guarding the entrance. The ones that are the foraging force that's out
Yeah.
in the neighborhood, they're not going to bother you. They're
Definitely.
not defensive.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, a lot of my job is kind of community service and explaining these things to people.
Yeah. I mean, it's great what you do. And I'm like, yeah, call this lady. She knows what's up. What when you asked your general contractor, like, hey, you want to do this with me? What was his reaction?
I called so many.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I've gone through a string of general contractors. Okay, so, and it takes a special person.
Yeah.
And Dwayne's that special person, he likes to tell this story sometimes when we're working to our clients. So I cold called him on the phone and explained, I'm a beekeeper. I need to work with a general contractor. I am not a contractor, but I
Right.
do have liability coverage. I need somebody who has construction liability. And we just want to open a wall. I need your help. And he didn't really know what to say. He didn't really ask a lot of questions. Sometimes the contractors would just hang up on me when I cold called them. Tom, they're like, you're a beekeeper? Nope. So, but Dwayne said, oh, I might be, I don't know if I like bees. And I said, look, just commit to one job. Just commit to one job, and
Right.
I'll pick an easy one. It won't be hard. I'll pick one right in town.
Yeah.
And it won't be hard. We'll just give it a try, And he said, call me back at 5:00 when I'm at home and I'll think about it. So that was it. So right at 5:00 on the dot, I called him back and he agreed.
Nice.
And that's all it took. It took one job. He loved it and he still does. We have a lot of fun at work.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good that you found somebody that can help you with all that stuff, because that's what I tell people, online, there's like a bunch of Atascadero local people and they're always like, can I get these bees out? But a lot of them actually do not want to hurt them. They're just like, I just would like them to leave,
Yeah.
which is, I think is good. And I'm like, call you. And I'm like, she does come with a general contractor. She knows
Yeah.
what she's doing.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely always plugging you. So trying to get you some work.
Well, there are a lot of bee removal situations that don't need a general contractor
Yeah,
and
right.
don't even really need me.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, swarms, spring swarms that are just ball of bees hanging in a tree somewhere. They don't need me or my general contractor for that. So, there are a whole group of club members and hobbyists in the county that are more than happy to step into that little niche. And so, for the most part, we do some pretty complicated and crazy work.
Yeah.
But the smaller jobs go to a different group of people.
Gotcha.
you know?
Okay. Yeah.
But I would never let anyone cut my house open to get bees without insurance.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
cut my house open for anything.
Yeah, fair enough, right? Yeah.
So, but people do it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, whether
it is
or not
what
they
it
should
is.
or not. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it is
all
what
good.
it is. And that's not even counting the people who call me with a can of Raid in their hand.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Don't do
so-
that either, people, if you're listening.
No.
Um,
And
well-
Raid's so darn cheap. People always tell me, well, Raid is cheap. Well, that doesn't mean it's good.
yeah, no.
Cheap isn't good.
Sure. I mean, I guess, yeah.
Not good for the environment. So, but I will say this. When someone tells me they're going to spray them, I tell them this. You'll kill the colony, but after a little while, that spray is going to wear off. And
Yeah.
it doesn't take long, maybe 30 days, maybe even less. It wears off. You know, it just does. On the outside, where the person has sprayed all that stuff. And so after a period of time goes by, the neighborhood bees think there's a free honey here. Let's go get it. But the spray will wear off on the outside when the sun hits it or whatever, but on the inside, it's gotten into the honey. So it's poison honey.
Right.
And then all the neighborhood bees come for free lunch, and it kills them.
More of them die.
Kills them. So people think they're just spraying one colony to clear their backyard or whatever, but in reality, they're putting all of the colonies within a 3-mile radius in
That's a
some
good
sort
point.
of jeopardy.
Yeah.
So spray is not good.
No.
And I talk to people about it a lot. You can't believe how many people ask
Oh, I
me.
believe it. I believe it. Yeah, people trying to kill stuff.
And people ask me to work for free. I don't like that either.
Hey, I was a photographer for a very long time. They wanted free stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And I am going to say this. I do charity work.
Yeah, no, but you got.
We
I
do
mean,
charity work.
You run
A little
business.
bit. We
you run
do
a
a
business,
little
though. You got to make money. It's all good.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. Anything else you want to add for people? And I will plug you, obviously, as I always do. But where can people find you? Or anything else you want to add before we go?
I do. Let me add this. If you like honeybees and you want to do something great for honeybees, plant spring flowers.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Or have a nice summer garden. Or plant some native plants that will bloom in the late fall when there's not a lot available. Okay. But growing plants is great. Growing food is even better. And it will help the bees in your neighborhood for sure. So I'm getting ready to, put in a garden.
Definitely. Anything else you want to add?
I think that's about
I
it.
think we did pretty good today. So where can people find you? I will most definitely plug you and all that stuff when I post this. But where can people find you?
So I'm SuziandtheQueenTeam.com. That's the website where you can see pictures of all the crazy stuff we do. And my phone number is there.
Yep.
And I actually answer my phone all the time.
Yeah, you do.
You rarely
Yes.
get my voicemail.
I called you and you answered.
Yeah. So
You're like, who is this person calling me?
And right now, I'm just waiting for it to ring.
Yeah. So
But when the warm weather comes in another month, it'll start ringing.
Right.
It's just, it's just the weather. And then the Central Coast Beekeepers Alliance, the club is great for new beekeepers or people wanting to learn more about honeybees.
and they have a meeting once a month in Santa Margarita?
In Santa Margarita.
Okay.
It's on Wednesdays this year, and it was just this last Wednesday.
Right, so
2
it'll
days
be
ago.
February sometime.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have some really fun events planned. They have some Zoom meetings planned with beekeepers in other states. And they have very cool T-shirts, Tom.
Ooh, I need to get one. Then. I need to get one. Plug that too. All right. Anything else?
No, I think that's good.
I think we did great.
Yeah.
Sweet.